Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us. Looking around the globe for places that really are focused on the environment, have many challenges, but yet are establishing really high-quality best practices. One of those is the border between the United States and Mexico. And we have a gentleman who's the true expert in all this. This is Andy Carey. He's the executive director for the USMexico BPP. And I'm going to let him tell us what that's about. And then we're going to start talking about the issues between the border of the United States and Mexico, the environment, and why it's so important that we actually share the issues, share the challenges, but share the resources to address this. So Andy, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Well, thank you, Sam. It's a wonderful place to be, and I appreciate the kind invitation.
Well, we're really glad to have you here. You're doing outstanding work. You have much coverage in Washington, D.C. through the Woodrow Wilson Center. I want to give them credit because that's how we were introduced. They're doing equally good work.
Partners, and they're just extraordinary people doing great work in public policy advocacy.
Yeah, and it's a big help to you, big help to, thousands really of organizations and regional bodies such as yours around the United States and around the world. But looking at the US-Mexico BPP, what does that actually stand for? And why is it important to have it here in the 21st century?
Well, thank you. Our organization is the US-Mexico Border Philanthropy Partnership. We were started in 2008 as part of an initiative to grow philanthropy between the United States and Mexico across the 10 border states. It was a funder collaborative headed by the Ford Foundation, the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, the Annie Casey Foundation, the Houston Endowment, the Gonzalo Rio Arronte Foundation in Mexico City, designed initially to strengthen the capacity of border region community foundations. There's 18 of them, Sam, in the borderlands, and it was an effort originally to strengthen their capacity to be that anchor institution to respond to local issues and challenges on behalf of the people. And since that time, when I came on board in 2008 to launch us as our own organization, we've extended invitations to include academia, business and corporate partners, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and the original group of foundations that make up our organization. Today, we are very proud to share that we have 336 organizations from both countries participating with us. And we support a network. We support our network of organizations that exist to build prosperity through leadership, collaboration, and philanthropy in the U.S.-Mexico border. We've been doing this work now for 11 years. We just were in D.C. in October to celebrate our 10th anniversary with a visit to Congress, with a visit to the Mexican Embassy, and a visit with funders in the nation's capital to talk about how important the borderland is. So it's exciting to be here with you today, Sam, to help tell that story.
Well, and that's what it's all about. Now, why is it so important that we have this collaboration between Mexico and the United States? And I'm putting Mexico first because we need to honor the effort that they're making and their contributions to the United States.
Absolutely. There's 36 million Mexican nationals that reside in the United States of America. Our two countries are inextricably linked. We don't only share a border, but we share a way of life. These are our neighbors. This is the country that has utmost strategic importance. 5 million jobs in the United States alone depend on our relationship with Mexico. Over 22 states across the 50 states, Mexico is their top trade partner. So we are joined at the hip. It's important that our two countries work together, that we collaborate together. And one of the things that we understand in the borderland, Sam, is that not only are we inextricably linked, but we're one family, we're one region. And what happens on one side of the border absolutely impacts the other. So we have to collaborate across the board on everything, on the environment, on education, on public health, on community development. No matter what the issue is, if you're doing it alone, you're not doing it right. And here in the borderlands, we understand that, and we meet daily with our counterparts in Mexico. You don't set a table without our counterparts there with us to help make the best decisions and to help make decisions that benefit both sides of the border, because our people go back and forth every day across the border. So you may work on one side and live on the other, or you have family on both sides of the border, or your employees are from both sides of the border. So when you work in our region, you have to understand that your environment is binational. And so you have to have programs, services, and supports ready to go to understand that you're working in a binational community.
Yeah, looking at the map that we just had up there, the various states, both in Mexico and the United States, and now the map itself, it really shows you how long that border is. And really, it goes from the Pacific Ocean all the way into the Gulf of Mexico.
It
And that
does.
is a huge border area to cover. How long is it? And how wide is that actual border area?
The border is over 2,000 miles long, and it is a very dynamic region, and it's full of big cities, small cities, rivers, mountains, desert. We have it all, and we
Mhm.
do have two oceans that border that are right there with us. So it's a very dynamic region. There's over 15 million people that live in the borderlands. About 40% of them are closer to where I am here in the San Diego Tijuana region. But it is a very dynamic region. In the city of Tijuana, it's one of the largest cities in all of Mexico, and it's right there across from San Diego. Our greater region has about 3 million people in it. So it's a very dynamic place, and a lot going on.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, it really is a beautiful area, but this gives you an idea of another landscape. This is a very urban one, of course, and you can see the wall actually going out, into the water. Tell us about the dynamics on both sides of this wall, and why the wall?
So this is a photograph of Playas de Tijuana. It's an area of Tijuana, the largest metropolitan area in the region. And the border fence, the original fence that you see that extends out into the water, that is the original fence that was put in many, many years ago. Actually, the first fence was actually inaugurated by First Lady Pat Nixon in the early 60s.
Mhm.
And she remarked, and it was a chain link fence, it was about waist high at that time. And she remarked that she hoped that the fence would never be a reality. And since that time, it just seems to grow and get taller. But that is the first fence that was put in. And when the Department of Homeland Security was created after the September 11 uh, attacks on our country, the issue about security in the borderlands became a stronger narrative, unfortunately. And
Mhm.
so, in some areas of the region, we actually have a triple fence. And here in San Diego, there's actually a triple fence, particularly in this area. Um, what's interesting is Mexico actually uses every inch of their country, and they go right up to the border fence. On their side, by that monument that you can see, there is a garden, and it's they have a vegetable garden there, and the people grow there. Different things. They plant trees in honor of those who have passed. There's all sorts of political messaging on the fence on the Mexican side about the value of binational relationships, and that honors the U.S.-Mexico relationship.
Well, it's really a dynamic area, and when you have two very large cities like that, it's going to be, but also it's quite pristine in many ways. Tell us the difference and why do we think of it just as a fence and really not as a living, breathing, organic area of life for both countries?
The for a lot of us here in the region, we would prefer it come down. It actually inhibits our communities to engage with one another. It inhibits trade. It inhibits the crossing of people and families. Yes, we need to have laws governing how people come in and go out of the country, but the fence has become more of a political tool to advance a narrative that doesn't really represent who we are as a nation. And so that is something we'd like to see change. You know, the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico is so much more than a barrier that divides us. We
Yeah.
understand, those of us that live here, that it's really about joining together of two communities, and we share water, we share air, we share a community, and so the fence makes that a little more complicated.
Yeah, and looking at it, I'm on the natural partners, and we actually are the ones that advocate for the monarch butterfly, both in Canada, the United States, and Mexico. And so, one of our last television programs, we talked about that, where the monarch butterfly is the bridge between our two countries versus a fence. And so, we use that as a metaphor where the monarch butterfly is going back and forth. It's very beautiful. At the same time, it's quite real as a pollinator. It's very necessary. And so we need to think about this border area in a much different way than what we have before. But looking at this mantra that you have in front of us, what does this really mean? And how has your organization helped to bring this into reality?
So much about the narrative of the US Mexico border region is controlled by Mexico City and Washington, D.C. And there's, unfortunately, Sam, a lot of that gets shared about our region. It comes down to an issue of security. And those of us that live here understand that it's so much more than just a dynamic of security. It's about community, it's about families, it's about jobs, it's about employment, it's about trade and commerce. And for our work, it's about philanthropy. And so we designed and came up with this statement: the border, it matters. It matters now, and it matters to you, because the border does matter. It has an incredible impact on the economies of both the United States and Mexico. And it matters to all Americans what goes on here, and not just about issue of people coming across or should they or shouldn't they. But people don't understand about how their daily lives are impacted by the border, the
Right.
number of people living amongst us, and our food sources that are grown. So much happens here. When the vegetables or the strawberries come across the border, um, people don't understand that when they're eating salads in different parts of the country, that a lot of those things actually came from our region. And so
Right.
it does matter. And it's important for people to be aware. When they say, oh, it's not safe to go to the border. Sam, I've lived in this region for 11 years. I've worked in the area for almost 30. And I've only been given a difficulty one time traveling, and no disrespect to my friends on the East Coast, but it actually happened in the state of New Jersey. I've never in all my worldly travels encountered any difficulty. And so the border region is safe. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to raise your family. And that's why we came up with this, because it invites conversation like you and I are having today to help people get informed.
All right, we're not going to get to the rest of our images, but in the last 20 seconds, what do you see for the growth and development of the U.S. Mexico BPP over the next, say, 5, 10, and 15 years? We have to be very quick.
It's an exciting time to support philanthropy. Our organization exists to help increase charitable giving across and along both sides of the border, and we are legally incorporated on both sides so we can help facilitate that. Over the past 7 years, we've brought over $5 million in charitable giving back and forth across the border, and we see that growing exponentially.
That's fantastic. Andy Carey of the U.S. Mexico BPP as we create the Emerald Planet.